So people are still confused about how to perceive reality. So I'm going to tell you the way I perceive it. Imagine you got a four-piece puzzle. You know, it's not hard to put together, right? But in biology, everything biological has a blueprint, but then there's viruses and fungi that change those blueprints. You know, the fact that dinosaurs died because their diets, you know, what they consumed died. So then these dinosaurs had to evolve. The plants had to evolve because the climates changed it. You know, you look at fish. You got them in an aquarium. You got a different fish can live in dirtier water where some can't. You know, some need better filters. Some need an exact temperature. So when this temperature goes up or down, their biology is saying, okay, well, this is no longer a livable habitat. We need to change. Now, how that's changed, who the hell knows? I don't. Maybe scientists do. But I'd rather see the picture rather than look at the details and try to make a picture out of the details because the picture will show me things that pre-proven evidence won't. You know, it's like possibility. If you don't look at possibilities, how are you ever going to know what to do? You know, no ideas come to you. Well, I could go do this, I could go do that. Well, if those don't come to you, you're just going to sit there, right? So those possibilities become survival in the way of biology. So basically, you take that four-piece puzzle and then you're adding on to it. You're adding, you know, lengthwise, widthwise, and you're building up. So you're building a puzzle onto that puzzle, plus you're building a puzzle on top of that puzzle, on top of another, you know, another puzzle on top of that puzzle, another puzzle on top of that puzzle. So literally, our bodies are a ton of puzzle pieces put together, and our eyes are designed to see the picture, not the little minuscule pieces of data. You know, that's why we were given microscopes. You know, the ability to make microscopes is so we could see that. But when we're not looking under a microscope, everybody's saying, well, what's reality? You know, we're looking under a microscope, we see that it's building blocks, but what is reality? Well, reality is obviously how we perceive it without equipment. Now, some people are blind, they can't see even any of the building blocks. But how would they be able to interpret what biology actually is? You know, there's other people that are half blind, there's people that can, you know, even animals that can see very, very long distances at high pristine resolutions. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that each puzzle piece is a cell, and it has the mitochondria. It has, you know, the all the things that transfer energy to the next cell, to the next cell, to the next cell, kind of like a, you know, a hydraulic fluid going through a skid steer, or you know, a backhoe. You know, it's transferring that energy into something else so it can perform its duties. So the reality is that we can perceive what reality is under a microscope, but our eyes were not designed as microscopes. So our reality that constructs itself is our brain's understanding. You know, if in the future we inhabit another planet, you know, and the physics and everything are different, let's say, because the atmosphere is more uh, constrictive on gravity or whatever it is, you know, we're going to evolve to inhabit that planet. But you're going to tell other people, well, we originated on Earth and we did this and that. And people are going to say, I can't see that. You know, How does that even fit in with reality? Because we're on this planet. They're saying the other planet was way different. They're going to be agreeable, but they're not going to understand the actual reality of it, right? It's like, can everybody imagine being a bird? Can they feel the feelings of? And I'm not saying like, a bird's nervous system. I'm saying your nervous system, imagining what it would be like to fly through the air. Now, you're not going to know what it's like to be a bird with parasites biting you all the time, enjoying rolling around in dirt. You're not going to think in the way of a bird's body, of a bird's brain, but you're going to interpret how you would feel being a bird, the way the bird perceives being a bird, but you're not going to perceive the same. So that's where it gets complex, because you're not going to understand a bird's nervous system. You're not going to understand their habits. You're not going to understand what they enjoy. You're not going to understand why they always seem to come so close to cars, but maybe that's their, excitement. Maybe. I mean, with technology, we can read their brain and tell what parts are activated and kind of code that into, okay, we're linking that to this because they also feel that way when they do this. So that's the reality difference between us and birds, is that we can see regions of the brain light up, but it doesn't give us the same. It doesn't add to our simulator what it feels like to be birds. We're just able to explain, well, birds like this and they like this more and they like that not as much as this, and blah blah blah. You're going to say, well, they hate this because their part of the brain lights up this way when they don't get a treat, and it lights up this way when they do this, so we know they don't enjoy that, right? Now, imagine a brick wall and you punch it. It's going to hurt, right? Well, now imagine being 10 times your size with 10 to 20 times your strength. You punch that wall, what's going to happen? You understand that, you can understand reality.